How's it going, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ricky Reed, and today we're going to be talking about volume versus gain. Before we hop in, let's talk through some definitions. Volume affects the output level, whereas gain affects the input level. So from there it gets a little weird and a little hazy because gain also affects the output level depending on how much you turn it up or turn it down. So how I'm going to show you the differences between volume and gain is we're going to go down here to the pedal board and we're going to use this Greer light speed, and currently I have it set up with a little more volume than gain and the tone knob rolled up just a hair. Let me show you what that sounds like real quick. So here's the bridge humbucker on my PRS. Here's the neck. Just to show you the dry tone that we're working with. So that's how I typically run my Greer light speed, a little more volume than gain and the tone raised up just a hair to add a little highs. And this is just my always on pedal, and I run all the pedals after straight into it for more gain. So just a little about this pedal. Every pedal is different, and we all know that there's thousands of overdrive, transparent overdrives, boost, whatever it is, distortion pedals out there right now. This one is pretty clean as far as I could tell. There's no big EQ humps like a Tube Screamer or a Klon style, no mid humps like that. It stays pretty even. All right, so how we're gonna start this is I'm gonna sweep through both the volume and the gain control. We'll start with the volume at 0 and go all the way to 100. Then we'll do the same thing with the gain side, go 0 to 100. But for that, I need to put up the volume just a little bit or we won't get any output. All right, so here we go. So you could hear right there, even without any gain, we have some distortion. So let me lighten up the touch just a hair. So that sounds great to me, and that's why I like running my volumes hotter than I do with the gain knob. And that just really pushes your amp or your profile, whatever you have going on amp sim-wise, into a little more distortion. And to me, it sounds a little more natural. All right, so now let's do the gain side. Like I said, I had to turn the volume up just a hair just so we get some output, right? So starting at 0, here we go. Lighten up the touch a little. Let me get a little heavier. So as you can hear, it's so compressed, and that just means that it's taken our loud notes and bring them down to the center, or our low notes and bring them back to the center to kind of balance it out. There's almost no dynamics, even when I try to lighten up on my touch. Whereas with the volume side, we saw that it cleaned up or could get a little dirtier. I'll also do my best to volume match these, but since volume and gain are a little tricky to volume match, if we're just showing these direct comparisons, there may be just a hair difference, but try to just listen for the tone and not be tricked by the volume. So now let's hear what a healthy mix of both sound like compared to just volume or just gain. So here's the volume at around 11 o'clock and the gain at 9 o'clock, and here's the sound that we have. Dig in. Let's see what happens if we boost some volume. Let's lighten up on the gain just a hair. And this is about where I like to run it usually. Let's add some more gain. Let's take away some volume. So that's the cool thing about the Greer Lightspeed. It's really responsive in almost all the gain levels, except when you go 100%. So half the battle is knowing what your pedal typically does when you turn up certain knobs, right? So in this case, I hear that when you turn up the volume, there's a beefier low end, sometimes a little boomy, and sometimes we don't want that, right? That may not be because of the pedal, but maybe how much output we're putting into our amp sim, in this case, the Tone X. On some pedals, for instance, Klon style pedals or like Archers, the Unobtainium that I have down here, the more you turn up gain, treble also increases with it. So you need to be listening for those changes, and gain's not just adding some distortion or overdrive. It can add EQ differences as well. So let's hear if there's any EQ differences when we turn up the gain with the Greer Lightspeed. We'll start with the volume just a little up, and we'll sweep through the gain knob. So I don't hear anything too different, and that's just one of the biggest strengths of the Greer Lightspeed. It's just boosting your amp a little more or adding a little natural or transparent overdrive. So I thought it'd be fun to show you how I dial in a first stage overdrive as an always on, just adding a little more distortion or overdrive and just a small volume boost, as well as controlling the tone to get the sound that I want. So let's start with the volume and gain both rolled all the way down. From here, I'm going to turn the pedal on and off and turn up the volume until it's nearly identical in volume. So that's pretty close. The Greer volume is just a hair lower than the Tone X, but we're going to turn up the gain, and that's also going to increase some volume. So what I look for in my tone is just a little more volume, a little more overdrive, and just a little brightness. I barely have the tone knob turned up on this, just a little past noon. So to me that sounds great, and that still gives me a lot of touch sensitivity and control my dynamics, especially in this first gain overdrive when I'm playing something really soft, or maybe it's just a light, clean solo. So my biggest tip for you is to try to use volume more than gain. Try to crank that volume to where you can get a little more natural distortion without clipping and losing so much of your dynamics. When I first started, I really loved cranking the gain because it feels so great under your fingers and you're just soaring, right? But that makes a more compressed sound and kind of buries you in the mix just a little bit more than just using a normal volume boost. Also, I feel like using the volume knob more than gain affects modelers in more of a positive way and kind of gets rid of that fizz or just not clear sound. I hope these sound clips and tips have helped you to understand the difference between volume and gain and how we can use them together to get the sound that we want. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and I'll make more content like this. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.